Welcome to the Sooners 360 Recruiting Podcast, a podcast for OU recruiting fans by Sooners 360. Each week we catch you up on the latest in OU recruiting news and provide opinions and evaluations on all things OU football recruiting. I'm Chris Mason, lead recruiting analyst for Sooners 360. This podcast is now sponsored by Sooners 360 on Patreon. To support this podcast, please go to patreon.com/Sooners 36817. Sorry, that's Sooners 360817, and click subscribe. It's only $2 a month, and there's also a free trial option, and that's where I'm posting all of my regular written recruiting content. That link will also be in the show notes. Also, this podcast is now part of the Believe podcast family. Every team, every topic, everywhere. And I'm also appearing on the Horns Down YouTube channel discussing OU season, along with Chris with a K, who runs that channel, and Jason from the Hall of Fame podcast. So we're having some spirited conversations. So just look up Horns Down in YouTube and subscribe to that channel as well. Also, if you're a YouTube follower of my show, please, you can find me by searching Sooners 360, and also please click subscribe. That helps greatly with the YouTube algorithms. So this is episode 109, titled Flip Panic Tracker Time. So we'll jump right into the recruiting news, and we'll start with the reason why it's now Flip Panic Time, or we're not going to bury the lead. We'll just hit the Kevin Sperry news because it just blew up tonight, or blew up's maybe a strong description. This isn't Bryce Underwood leaving LSU, or Julian Lewis leaving USC. This is Kevin Sperry decommitted from OU and has committed to FSU. I find it extremely ironic that Kevin has left one uncertain offensive coordinator situation and jumped right into another one. Really, this isn't a big shock. I think I didn't have any hints that this was coming, not implying I knew anything beforehand. But in terms of, am I really surprised? On some level, it seemed like Kevin's commitment to OU was a little tenuous after Jeff Lebby left. He was a Jeff Lebby guy. He really wanted to play for Jeff Lebby. And Lebby was also the guy that, offered Kevin Sperry really before Kevin got a lot of other national big-time offers. So with Joe John Finley not really being a contender for the offensive coordinator job, that was pretty firmly established by Brent's press conference this week. So, if it wasn't Kevin Sperry, maybe Joe John Finley was Sperry's closest connection. So both of those guys are no longer in Norman. So I think Sperry probably had been looking around a little bit. I'm kind of surprised FSU extended an offer and took Kevin Sperry to a certain degree. Obviously, they just lost. FSU just lost their big-time QB commit. He flipped to Florida. The FSU class is tanking at levels far beyond what's happened to OU so far, I don't think OU will experience as many losses as FSU. They've lost something in the line of 10 verbal commitments and keep adding people back and losing people. Their class is a mess. It's hard to know where the structure is on there. They're obviously still looking for an offensive coordinator and a defensive coordinator. So I just think Kevin Sperry, who, I think he's generously listed at 6'1", 215. Based upon everything I've saw from Sperry this summer, I would say Kevin Sperry's probably 6 foot, maybe a little over 200 pounds. Kevin's not a fit for every offense, I don't think. So not knowing OU's offensive coordinator, maybe he's played a bigger role here in terms of Kevin not wanting to know. But again, he's jumping into Mike Norvell's offense. He's not exactly, if you think about FSU's last two quarterbacks under Norvell, he's nowhere close to Travis Benjamin, and he's not really resembling DJU either. So I don't know where Kevin Sperry fits in with FSU, but I think OU probably was willing to take Kevin Sperry and honor that commitment. But the moment I don't think OU is exactly this isn't burning a hole in their recruiting plans. Kevin, the high school transitions I think have hurt Kevin a little bit. I understand for family reasons why he moved back to Denton Guyer. He probably shouldn't have moved to Oklahoma City in the first place. Maybe they overreacted to that situation a little bit. And I think all the movings hurt him. He's not having a great year at Denton Guyer. They are in the playoffs, and maybe he will flash in the playoffs, and this will look like a great pickup by FSU. But he didn't flash this year or look great this year. His stats are a little all over they're average. And he didn't have a great year at the Elite 11 camp. He was not one of the top guys, wasn't discussed anywhere in the top 13, 12. I think he made like a couple of top 13 lists. He was like number 13 for like some of the drills. But he was just not, he didn't, all the prior predictions when he first verbal to OU that, this is going to be a top 50, top 100 type quarterback. None of that stuff's really materialized. And I don't think he's physically really gotten bigger, or I don't think he's really gotten that much bigger. So I think maybe this is a sensible divorce for OU and Kevin Sperry, rather than him just enrolling for OU for a year and then jumping ship to somewhere else. I think probably him resetting is probably a smart idea. And I don't think OU's exactly fighting to reclaim this verbal. Doesn't mean that they were. I just think that's kind of where we are. This isn't a crushing blow. It does leave OU without a quarterback. We'll get to that in a sec. So we wish Kevin Sperry all the best at FSU. Well, sort of. I don't really like FSU, but all the best to his college career, and we'll see where that goes. Maybe we are rolling back 3 years from now and ruining the day that he left the Sooners. So we'll see. So where does OU go from here? Well, there's not much time to go anywhere, and they have no offers out there. They haven't offered any new quarterbacks with Kevin Sperry, obviously verbal. They only have one QB spot. They have been circling around Jamarian Ficklin. I believe I have that pronunciation correct, from Muskogee. He's a left-handed quarterback. He's about 6'2", 185, 190 pounds, pretty mobile, has a pretty good arm. I can't say I've watched a lot of footage of him because this thing just broke. But he's also got a Utah offer. And I think he's going to go to Utah this weekend, or at least that's been reported at various recruiting sites. Were reporting that earlier this week. Well, sort of one Wednesday. I don't know if the Sperry thing changes that. If OU, gets him on the phone and says, "Don't go to Utah, come to Norman." And if that does, that would be a clear indication of maybe where OU's going. But if he goes to Utah, OU could still offer him, make a verbal offer. He's been in Norman any number of times, so I don't think that's quite as big an issue. Grady Adamson is another in-state quarterback at Deer Creek, which recruiting guys like. I watched a little film. He looks pretty good. He is verbal to Georgia Tech, and Georgia Tech is having a really good season. They just pulled off another come-from-behind win on ESPN about 2 hours ago. And he fits well with what they want to do. And obviously, Georgia Tech has really good academic programs depending upon the field. So Grady could be looking at a combo academic reason and football reason why he wants to go to Georgia Tech. The staff there is doing a good job. So I'm not sure I don't think that's an immediate offer, and you can just expect, OU offered me. That's so great. Let me change all of my plans. I'm not sure if he's planning on enrolling early. Can't speak for Jamarian, who was verbal to Texas State. G.J. Kenny is the head coach there. He's been getting some mention for offensive coordinator a little bit. He's just signed an extension, but I would imagine that based upon everything that's sort of floating around, Ficklen's heading to Utah for that visit, I would imagine, and that's a good offer. Based upon what I've seen on film, he'd be a good fit in the Utah offense, whatever they do moving forwards. And then there's a third in-state name. I don't know this. I don't know this player that well. I just watched a little bit of. He doesn't have any condensed senior year highlight footage, so I just watched a quick highlight of him playing Union. It's David McComb at Edmond Memorial. I believe he's a Kansas commit. He looks pretty good too. I mean, these guys all look pretty good. They all look good to be good high school quarterbacks. I haven't really watched enough film to really generate too much of an opinion. But those are some in-state kids OU could offer or try and offer and flip if they wanted to. Are there any Texas high school quarterbacks they could do that to? Yeah, I think they probably might need an offensive coordinator named first, but that's a possibility. National quarterbacks, OU's been in the Kevin Sperry bucket for so long that, he verbaled so early in 2023. I think it was like in April. So, OU's 2025 recruiting for a quarterback never really got off the ground. It was Kevin Sperry was offered by Lebby. He verbaled and everything was shut down for the rest of the year. So, OU never really picked up any momentum this year, offering anybody else or letting Sperry out of his, telling Sperry, we're going to let you out of your commitment. We're going to do something, go in a different direction. So I don't know that there's a national quarterback that just is ready to be part of this OU class. Stranger things have happened. OU could name an offensive coordinator and turn right around, and all of a sudden someone says, hey, I'm willing to drop X and be the OU quarterback in the class. If they don't offer Ficklin or one of the in-state kids, though, I tend to think OU may just skip a high school quarterback on signing day. Let the new OC be announced. Let him come in, figure out what's going on with the quarterbacks on campus, what's going on with the portal, and then perhaps OU adds a quarterback in February. Or they add a later signee who enrolls early, something along those lines. With the no letter of intent, things are it's going to be a little messy in December. The podcasts are probably going to be a little messy in December, trying to figure out how to clarify what's going on with no letter of intent and are players still being recruited after they've had signing ceremonies and all that. So you're just going to have to bear with me as we wade through a new signing day paradigm and what that means in terms of kids being off the board. So if I had to guess, I would guess OU passes on a high school quarterback for the December 4th signing day. Now, 24 hours later, that could be wrong, so don't hold me to that. But if they're not offering Ficklin, who has been on campus a couple of times, and I would imagine they're just going to skip this, wait until the offensive coordinator is hired, let him figure out his quarterback room, and then see if they can pick up somebody maybe for February, or someone who changes their mind in mid-December or something. I'm not quite sure how well that's going to work once you're signed on December 4th, or what level can you just enroll somewhere else? Again, it's a mystery bucket which we'll work through and kind of go from there. So that's 14 minutes on Kevin Sperry. I think that's probably enough. As has been reported on multiple sites, Cash Jacobson went to USC last weekend, committed on his visit, and does not plan on visiting OU for the Bama game. I'm not sure where that leaves OU at defensive line, other though I know that OU needs more defensive line, high school defensive linemen. There's no update on Caleb Burns at this point. I think there's a good possibility he does not visit OU for the Bama game, and he just sticks with his Baylor commitment. I think a lot of the buzz around Burns and OU was 4 weeks ago when everybody thought Dave Aranda was getting fired. It doesn't look like that's happening any longer, and Baylor's really playing better than OU. So, Oregon's still a threat, I think, maybe. Not sure. That's maybe a distance issue there, but I don't see Caleb Burns being a factor for OU at linebacker, leaving OU with only one linebacker in Marcus James, who I actually think is so athletic and so big frame, has such a long frame that I think he's going to outgrow it, end up as a rush end. So we'll see what happens there. So there are no new 25 offers at defensive tackle, defensive end, or linebacker. And this is or offensive tackle or combo offensive lineman either, or tight end. So the roster spots that really are screaming for help, or the recruiting classes just needs more players. Right now, it doesn't look like OU is going to try and ride out what they can, and then hit the portal. I'd like to think OU will use February, January recruiting to pull some players in and sign a couple of prospects they really like in February. Let's remember OU got R. Mason Thomas in February. They got Grayson Halton. So you're totally capable of finding contributory players in January and signing them in February. It's completely possible. And with this weird letter of intent thing, you could have guys with coaching changes and assistant coaching changes after the playoffs. Some folks could become available. So I'd like to see OU. They didn't last year, and that made sense last year. But I'd like to see OU use the time frame they have in January to try and bring some. They've got unlimited visits, so there's no reason why not. Try and find some gems, some seniors. Try and find some guys who would help, who could enroll and help OU and be part of the freshman class. At depth in those other spots, especially linebacker, because we are going to lose. We've got all of our linebackers kind of clustered together as sophomores and juniors. We only signed one linebacker last year, James Nesta. He hasn't played that much, which is to be expected with the depth OU has at linebacker. But we kind of clustered together, and it would be nice to have some younger guys developing behind Kip Lewis and Kobe McKenzie and Deshaun McCullough and Lewis Carter and Samo Musigo. Okay, that's the 25 updates where we are. Let's get to the other 2025 issue of the day, which is the Flip Panic Tracker or Flip Panic Meter, whatever cliche term you want to use. So I'm going to go through the guys I think are the biggest worries to flip, and I'm going to give you a number out of 10 in which I think you should be concerned. So we'll start with the big one, the one that created all the panic earlier in the week. The sky was falling. Birds were falling out of the sky. It was raining frogs. Michael Fasusi said he was going to go visit Texas and then Texas A&M for the UT A&M game on Thanksgiving. Not go to OU for OU Alabama. So obviously this created, he's the gem of the class. He's the 5-star player. He's the guy OU has desperately been trying to land for the last 3 years. Obviously I think we all think that Ryan Foje is going to be an excellent college offensive lineman. He's up to 305, so he's like 6'6", 305 now. So Ryan Fode's gonna be great, but Michael Fasusi's the 5-star. He is the David Stone of this class. Let's just kind of give him that label. So I think I think the panic meter is 5 out of 10. And I'm going to just say that's sort of a 50% number. I'm basing this on is I think if OU keeps Bill Biedenbauer, they sign Michael Fasusi. I think OU's NIL package and OU's NIL contact with Fasusi's folks, his agent, is all good. I think a little bit of this whole trip thing is because has kind of blown out of proportion a little bit, and it all started because Mike's Louisville team lost, so his high school's career is over. So instead of high school playoffs this weekend and next weekend, he's just got free time. So I think that's kind of playing a little bit in this. One of the stories from 247 says that he was going to go to the A&M game with his buddy Sean Hutton, the OU preferred walk-on and OU legacy. And so I kind of think maybe, they kind of got together like, we're not playing. Do you want to go see Texas A&M? And Fasusi's like, yeah, I can get us some tickets. Like, if I ask those guys if I can unofficially visit, I can get us a pair of tickets. So I think that may be what's going on. The Texas thing, Texas obviously has been working Fasusi hard. They're pushing hard. They have a lot more on the field momentum than OU. They've got pretty good recruiting momentum, although they may lose a couple of guys. They're extended to the Southeast a little more than probably we would expect Texas to be. And Florida they seem to have, stopped the erosion in recruiting and grabbed a little momentum off their LSU win and the support behind for their coach. So they seem to have reclaimed a little recruiting momentum, and there's some UF verbals that owed to Texas, flipped to Texas verbals that now UF is trying to flip back. So we'll see what's kind of going on there. But I think it's a binary decision with Michael Fasusi. He's looking to make sure he has options in case OU does not retain Bill Biedenbauer. So Cortland Guillory did visit Texas. Texas has since added Grayson Littleton, a cornerback from, I think, Florida, who was a Clemson verbal. So I don't think they need Guillory or are pushing for Guillory as hard now as they were previously. So I'm going to give Cortland Guillory 3 out of 10. Cortez Mills, apparently, according to 247 and some other sites, Nebraska's and Clemson are pushing heavily for him. He has visited both of those places previously officially. So he's got connections there. And he's from Florida, so he doesn't have as much natural. OU has no distance advantage. Nebraska's kind of flopping to the finish here. If you've not seen them, Dylan Raiola's really struggling. They don't exactly have a lot of momentum on the field, but they did grab Dawson Merritt, an outside linebacker from the Kansas City area from Alabama, and they are throwing NIL around. So if I was OU, I might be checking in with Mills' agent and just making sure that everything's good from an NIL standpoint. Sweeten the pot there because Mills is a star. He's a Navy All-American. We need wide receiver help badly, and I would like to think that Emmett Jones, if we could get an offensive coordinator named after the LSU game, that combination of that and Emmett Jones and our NIL guys keeping on the ball would allow us to keep Mills from flipping. But, there's 2 serious contenders out there, and he's visited those guys. They're real presences in his recruiting. So I think that's probably on the panic meter, 6 out of 10, just because you have a clear adversary who has gotten him on campus and has some connections. The next name is, unfortunately, at wide receiver 2. It's Emmanuel Choice, who just got named to the On3 Top 100. Had a great senior year. Notre Dame and Texas are the 2 names mentioned. I don't think he's officially visited Notre Dame yet. And if he stays home the next 2 weekends, I'm not sure how much I'm worrying. But Texas is obviously making a big push. If they lose Jamie French to Florida, That's one of those Texas guys I mentioned, and I think they're going to make a real push, and I think there's a chance they could flip him. So you've got two schools floating out there, both of them having better years than Oklahoma. Notre Dame badly needs big outside wide receiver help, anything to give them some speed and size in that program to give them some vertical threat. So I'm going to say that's a 5 out of 10, just because we do have two programs that are in better stability shape than OU. But Choice was kind of an Emmett Jones guy. Emmett, we offered Choice before anybody else when no one else really knew about him. So that makes me wonder if we can get the OC situation stabilized, whether that will help keep Choice in the fold. But people are prowling around. It was a great evaluation. He's had a great senior year. It's tough. And then the last name I think is really sort of in the flip. Needs to be on the flip panic tracker. Is Omarion Robinson, the top 100 safety from Arkansas. Obviously, Arkansas wants him badly. He went and watched an Arkansas game. There doesn't appear to be any movement there, but OU is fighting a tradition that Arkansas is able to keep in-state talent home. So it's going to be close, but I'm going to say 3 out of 10, mainly because, there's no real instability at safety recruiting. And you've got Brandon Hall, who is, Oklahoma guy, has connections. So he's got regional connections, and, and he's going to be, Billy Bowman's going to be drafted. Robert Spears Jennings has every potential, look like he's going to be drafted. And OU's got young safeties that are looking good. So if I'm Omarion Robinson, I'm probably viewing the safety room as there's lots of opportunities. And Brandon Hall isn't going anywhere. And that looks like a stable situation for me. Whereas Pittman in Arkansas, I think, is still a little wobbly. We'll kind of see where they finish the year. So that's the flip panic tracker for you. So the last segment, we'll just talk about the Bama visitors. This is nowhere near complete, just names I've been able to pull from social media and various other public posts. For 2025, it's just going to be verbals at this point. I'd love for a couple of surprise names and offers to show up, or people who previously offered. Obviously, I'd love to see a defensive tackle show up. But right now, it's Cortland Guillory. Like I said, good sign with Texas, kind of backing off a little bit, getting Guillory back on campus. And then a really great sign that Trent Wilson, the defensive tackle from the Maryland area, is supposedly coming in for the game. He's having a great senior year, and he's going to enroll early. If he puts on good weight, he could easily be in the defensive tackle rotation at a 3-technique pass rush, and a minimum of 3-tech pass rush specialist. But he's just playing great. For 2026, I think this list will be longer, but here's just a couple of names. Obviously, OU just needs to get past this season and just past this instability to kind of get 26 recruiting back, to get it going again, get the offensive side of the ball going again, and to just start making some moves on the defensive side. So Jaden O'Neal, he's coming to campus. Everything I've heard indicates that Jaden seems pretty locked up with OU, that he's determined to see who OU hires as their offensive coordinator. And as long as that guy runs an offense that he fits in, and basically there's almost every offense other than the wishbone, Jaden O'Neal fits. I mean, he's mobile, he's big, he's physical, he's got a cannon for an arm. So I'm not sure you could design a modern college offense that Jaden O'Neal couldn't play in. So that's good that he's back on campus. I'd like to hope that he's back on campus and has a talk with Brent Venables, and Brent is able to give him some directions about what's going on at offense coordinator. Then we got the two big Texas offensive guards, Pulelite Primus and Toa Katoa, are both supposed to visit. Again, both of those, if you could grab both of those guys, it would give you a big a huge boost to your inside offensive line and really kind of set up the class. He's alleged to come in. I think this is his third OU game and like his fifth OU visit this year. Deuce Geralds is supposed to come in town, the defensive tackle from Georgia. His dad's an Ole Miss legacy. He's a top 40, top 30 type player, having a great year. Be nice if he was back on campus again. And then this guy has posted that on X that he's visiting. His name's Charlie Ward. He's an offensive tackle from Louisiana, 6'6", 280, 290 range. I can't find any film on him and don't think he has an OU offer, but he could. So not sure what's going on with him, but I'm sure we'll get a little more information. I'm just seeing some scrimmage highlights embedded in a Twitter post, and he looks big. He looks pretty powerful, but not exactly great angles or I can't. Not a lot to see. There are two big time 2027 kids coming to campus. One 2028, one 2027 kid. Caden Henderson, the linebacker from Florida, from the Tampa area, superstar at the OU summer camp, top 30, top 40, 5-star type player for 2027 probably. He's coming to campus. I'd imagine Zayden Rowe will be back on campus. He seems to come for every home game. And then a couple of 2028 kids. Micah Rhodes, the running back, who it's so hard to tell with 2028 at this point, but it wouldn't shock me if he's not a top 5 running back in the country. And then a new name, and it's I've mentioned this on Twitter. If you follow me on Twitter, you've seen this, is Tulsa Union has a freshman defensive tackle called Terrence Evans, who already has offers from Ole Miss and Auburn. He's 6'3", 320. He's had a really good year, and I think an OU offer is just a matter of time. And now he's getting back on campus. So this would be, to repeat the Twitter post I made earlier in the week, this would be a big deal because that would mean OU potentially has in-state defensive tackles for 2026 in Taj Overton, 2027 in Joseph Graves at Booker T. Washington. Taj Overton's obviously from Owasso. So then you got Owasso, Tulsa, Booker T. Washington, and then Terrence Evans is from, Union, Tulsa Union. So 3 classes in a row, 3 defensive tackles who have SEC offers, top 150, top 200 type folks. If OU can get a defensive tackle in state that fits that criteria every year, that'd be huge for OU. Graves has an offer, and the only other guys that had offers before him were Overton, Stone, and McCoy. Pretty sure Evans will have an offer by his sophomore year. So the OU, that's basically, 3 sophomore defensive tackle offers in state in a row, which OU hasn't done in forever, to the best of my knowledge. Not since I've been tracking recruiting. I'm sure they offered the Selman brothers in a row, but that's like going back to the 70s. So that's all I got for you guys. It's been tough with all the recruiting news just because things have been stalled on 2026. There haven't been as much action and offers and visitors because of the losing streak and the offensive problems and the coaching uncertainty. So I apologize about not having more updates for you guys and more content, but we'll be hitting portal season hard. So once we're going to cover signing day in a big way. I'm hoping to do a live stream with some cohorts so we can have some roundtable discussion and things along that line. More to come on that. Give you guys as much warning as possible about that. But we're also going to cover the portal traffic and what's going on with the portal, because that's going to be a big deal for talent acquisition for the Sooner roster as things move forward. So, and we're also every site's tracking the offensive coordinator position. I don't have anything new to add to that you're not finding anywhere else. Obviously, once a hire is made, I'll have a podcast update framing that around recruiting and what it means from a recruiting perspective. But for now, we're hearing the same things everybody else is. That it's some weird combination of Craddock, Arbuckle, Mullen, maybe Jake Spavital. Like I said, G.J. Kenny just went off the board with his update at Texas State. I've heard Caden Bell mentioned, the Pittsburgh offensive coordinator, from some folks. I think OU is doing their due diligence and Brent's doing interviews. So wants to make sure he does not limit his search like he did last year, which led to the mistake of where we find ourselves this fall. So thanks for listening. Make sure to subscribe to the podcast on your platform of choice. And don't forget to leave a rating. If you're on YouTube, please like the video and also subscribe to help us with the algorithm and all that. And also, please visit patreon.com/Sooners360817 to subscribe for more of my recruiting content. The Patreon site directly supports this podcast. It helps keeps this podcast free. So please consider giving us a try and doing a trial membership over there. I think you'll like the content from a recruiting standpoint. It's everything that you want to see. Okay, thanks, everyone.